Hotapu everyone. This is His Royal Majesty King Ra Sumabathagbemi, the world's first openly African black gay king. And today I wish to teach you about the Egyptian New Year, called the Peret Sopedu, or Peret Sopedet, the Heliacal rising of Sirius, which I have calculated for the world happens July 18th, which was yesterday, which was July 18th, 2017. A heliacal rising star is a special class of star, meaning its physics is quite specific. And I want to spend a bit of the video going through what's happening and then how the gatekeepers of Africa took this physics dynamic, this physics behavior, and pulled out a whole philosophy about life and death from it. Okay? So a heliacal rising star has to fulfill three conditions. It must, A, be seen to set right around sunset in the west. You have to be able to see it when we say dying or going towards the west right after the sun dies or sets. Step 2, the star must, for a certain amount of time, could be days, weeks, or months, be invisible from the sky, absent from the sky. In step 1, you see the star at night, at dusk, setting right after the sun. So you see it. Then there's a time you don't see it at all. It disappears completely from the sky, like a Harry Potter invisibility cloak. And then the third requirement is it must reappear right before sunrise at some other point in the year. So again, three conditions. You must see it dying in the west at sunset. Number 2, you must see it as not being in the sky, invisible for a certain time frame. And step 3, it must reappear right before sunrise. So it has a sunset phase, a vanishing phase, and a sunrise phase. That's it. If the star simply rises with the sun at dawn, it's called a morning rising star, not a heliacal rising star. Heliacal rising stars need what? 3 factors. Dying at sunset, 1. Vanishing, that's step 2. Step 3, appearing right before sunrise. Okay, now, we have here the sun, here, which is a star, and we have Sirius, which is a star, the brightest star in the sky, the brightest fixed star, and the sun is the brightest object in the sky, of course. These two stars have a pattern that's very similar. They both have a cycle of 365 days, and one has a cycle of 365 days and some change in a quarter or so, about 6 hours. Now, the blacks of Kemet noticed this connection between their orbits, their patterns of 365, and felt they were talking to each other because of this math. Now, the Dogon and the Kamau said that they come from Sirius. Their spirits come from this star Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, inside of what we call Canis Major, this dog, the great dog, Canis Major. Now, I want to show you how it looks visually at a heliacal rising star. Before we do that, I must explain 2 things to you. There's more than one New Year's in the Kemetic calendar. We celebrate more than one new year each year. Okay? There's something called, in physics, astrophysics, the mathematical heliacal rising of a star. What's called its true heliacal rising. And a separate phrase called the visual rising of the star. So we have the true or the mathematical rising of that star, which you often cannot see because the sun blots it out, which I'll show you in a few moments. And then you have another moment of the Heliacal rising called the visual or the apparent Heliacal rising. Okay? Kemetic astrology is very star-oriented. We dealt with planets, but planets were secondary to the stars. So for many of you who may be astrologers or just listening for the first time, this may sound a bit complicated, but no matter, you'll get the use of it. You'll get the hang of it. Okay? So I'm going to now show you on the screen the true Heliacal rising of Sirius. What that means is that it's going to rise with the sun. If you look here, they're almost on the same line. They're very much on the same horizontal, very close. So when Sirius and the sun are on the same horizontal or very close, that's when you know it's going to have what's called mathematical Heliacal rising. Okay? I'm going to click minute by minute on a certain day. Here is the sun. Here is Sirius. This yellow line is the horizon. Yes? This line here is the ecliptic, the sun's trail. Okay? I'm going to click by 1 minute increments. And I want you to keep your eye on the sun and Sirius. When the sun gets around 12 degrees, 10, 12 degrees below this horizon line, it's called dawn. Okay, now watch the sun and Sirius. Okay, keep your eye on that. I'm going to click. You see the horizon getting a little brighter up here. I'm going to click again. Another minute. We're going to click. You see the sky's getting more. There's the sun. Now we're at sunrise, dawn. The sun's at least about 10 degrees beneath the horizon. Now watch. The sky's going to get brighter and brighter. Okay. Now watch how the sun and Sirius will cross this horizontal yellow line around the same time. You see? Could be a little bit before or after, but watch. You see they're almost there together. Here's the sun beneath that line. Here's Sirius. We're just a few minutes away from them crossing. Boom. They're both touching the yellow line at the same time. You see that? This is called the mathematical rising of Sirius, Heliacal rising of Sirius, where the sun and Sirius actually co-rise. They cross the horizon at the same moment. And as we click along, you can't see Sirius because it's in this sunlight. This orange now is daylight. You can't see it. It's invisible to the morning eye. Okay? Now I'm going to go, let's just pick, I'm going to go a month. I'm just picking a date here that I know would make this work. Let's go a little earlier in the day. Okay. All right. So here we are. Look already. I jumped about a month later in the calendar. Notice, here's the sun, but here's Sirius. You see? They are not on the same latitude, the same horizontal. Sirius is already above the horizon, and the sun, this is early morning. That's why it's kind of purpley here. So you see the sun is rising, but before the sun rises, you do see Sirius in the sky. It's visible. So this is rising before sunrise. We're going to click 1 minute increments. You see it's getting brighter. This purple means there's more sunlight coming over the horizon. But look, you can still see Sirius before the sun crosses the horizon. It's there early in the morning. You still can see it. It's not washed out yet by this purple light of the sun. Look, the sky's getting brighter, but you can still see Sirius visually. The sun is still beneath the horizon. The sky's getting brighter and brighter. You can still see Sirius visually with your two eyes, the naked eye. Watch this. We're almost having the sun hit the horizon. You can still see Sirius. These other stars are getting blotted out because they're not as bright. Look, the sun hits the horizon line here. You can see it there. You still see Sirius. The sun's rising, rising, rising. Sirius is getting lighter. The sun's getting higher. Look how long you can still see Sirius. The other stars are gone. You see, that's why it's a blank blue up here. This is called the visual or apparent heliacal rising of Sirius. The true heliacal rising happened a month earlier. So that true heliacal rising one, a month earlier, where they were on the same line, is used by priests. The priests would look at the true mathematical rising of Sirius. That was a mathematical new year. And the Kemetic temple star priests would cast the chart for that moment. That tells you the true energies coming to the kingdom at this new year. Then, several days, weeks, or a month or so later, you have the apparent visual appearance of the star, where anyone in the village or town or kingdom can see the star rising if they're at the right latitude. That's how what we saw in the mathematical rising will appear, make an appearance in your life. So the priests knew from the true rising of Sirius, the true new year, which is invisible to the naked eye, that was going to be the true patterns coming into the kingdom, the true prophecies for the year. Then they would do a chart for the visual heliacal rising a few days, weeks, or months later to see how the people will see the events of the true chart, the true heliacal rising a month earlier. So we have two new years, a true new year with the true heliacal rising and a visual new year. The true new year was very secret. The priests never discussed it. And the priests would do secret ceremonies for that date to protect the pharaoh, to protect the kingdom. When the star returns from the dead, from being invisible, we say the star died at sunset, went into the underworld of the ancestors, got information from the ancestors, and was reborn mathematically on the mathematical heliacal rising of Sirius, and reborn again visually on the visual heliacal rising of Sirius. While the star was in the underworld, invisible, it was getting information from the ancestors. It was with its ancestors. When it came back to resurrection at true mathematical rising or visual heliacal rising, it announced what it will now do this year as commanded by the ancestors. So we see in this mathematical dance that a star dies, disappears, reappears, became the philosophy of reincarnation. That we die, we seem to vanish, our spirits vanish, but it reincarnates into a new baby. And that when we died, we went someplace, that invisible realm was called the land of the ancestors. When we are reborn at heliacal true rising or heliacal visual rising, we bring with us the new information and orders of the ancestors. When there's the heliacal rising of Sirius, there's a lot of, because they're the two brightest stars in the sky, the Kamau observed a lot of atmospheric and psychological disturbances that happened when these two stars joined either on the same horizontal or Sirius before the sun, visually. There's a lot of atmospheric, psychological, and spiritual static and tension. Weather patterns become strange. Weird events happen on Earth with humans. Disturbances in the tectonic plates. But you'll notice in particular a lot of issues about storms and rain. Sirius was called the Great Drop, the teardrop. And you will notice there's a lot of issues around rain and water when Sirius rises heliacally. Okay? Now, we're almost there. One more detail. Each city on the Earth that can see Sirius, not all cities can see Sirius, but those that can, or any heliacal rising star, whatever it may be, Sirius or whatever it may be, you will have 2 Egyptian New Years. The priest's mathematical New Year and the visual Heliacal Rising New Year. So on July 18th, 2017, was the visual Heliacal Rising of Sirius. It was the Egyptian New Year for the whole planet Earth. I decoded how to calculate that for the whole planet. Depending upon where you are on the Earth, the date for this can be May, June, July, August. It changes by your location, your latitude above the equator. So many cities, even in Kemet, had a different visual Heliacal Rising of Sirius and a different priest or mathematical Heliacal Rising of Sirius. So the new year would be different, for example, in Abu Simbel than it would be in Cairo by several days, if not a couple of weeks, differential. So there had to be a date that was set for the whole country, the whole world. I have decoded that date for the whole planet. So no matter where you are on the Earth, this is the new year, which is July 18th, 2017. The Kemetic New Year started for planet Earth. Then you're going to have 2 kind of subset New Years for your town, if your town can see Sirius. You're going to have a true mathematical town heliacal rising and a true mathematical town visual rising. Okay? I know this is a different kind of astrology, but it's very important to understand how it works. Because from these astrophysic dynamics, we get a whole philosophy of reincarnation and the ancestors and the afterlife and coming back to existence. So watch for when heliacal rising of Sirius visually happens over your town. You will find your town will go through more atmospheric disturbances, more storms, more rain issues or drought issues, more issues with perhaps insects or bugs or animals, issues with earth shakes, earthquakes, and a lot more confusion, tension among people in general. Okay? So I pray this helps you understand. We did ceremonies for the true heliacal rising of Sirius, the mathematical, and yesterday on July 18th, ceremonies for the visual heliacal rising for the world. And they were fantastic. The amount of power you get, the amount of information from the ancestors, from the African spirits, is tremendous when you time it properly to this geometry. So I pray you enjoyed this tutorial. Please review this. If it's a bit hard to follow at first, you will get it. It's very easy to follow after you hear it a couple of times. It is this date that changes different years. This year happened to be July 18th. It changes. But it's based upon the new year, the Kemetic New Year, that we calculate your chart, your particular Kemetic birthday. You see? Because in the Sirius system, 1 year in the Sirius system is 4 years in the Western system. So 365 plus 365 plus 365, plus 365 is considered 1 year of Sirius. So the Kemetic year is equal to the 4 Western years with a leap year in the 4th quarter. Okay, that changes your age. So if you are 4 years old in the Western calendar, you're 1 year old in the Kemetic calendar. It's a 4 to 1. If you're 8 years old in the Western calendar, you're 2 years old in the African calendar. Okay? Because 4 times 2 is 8, and 2 times 1 is 2. So you're actually younger. You count in a slower rate, your age, when you are following the African calendar. They had a very different sense of time and of aging. Okay? You might only be 10 years old in the African system, but already in your 30s or 40s in the Western system. You see? So there are a lot of ramifications to this calculation technique. And I'm going to start taking my YouTube channel back more towards a Kemetic astrology emphasis. I used to have a channel called Egyptian Astrology Now, which I took down. I had over 1 million views on that channel before I took it down. I'm going to go a bit back in that direction because the gay people of Kemet were the master astronomers and astrologers. And I want to bring back the legacy of Kemetic astronomy and astrology. And this video marks the beginning of that. That's what I'm doing for the new year, the Kemetic New Year. It's really a quarter of a year, actually, because 1 Egyptian year is equal to 4 Western years. So stay tuned for more classes, workshops, seminars, and videos on Kemetic astrology. I wish to thank the gatekeeper gay ancestors of Kemet who are reviving this science to the world. This is the only channel in the world that has the accurate astronomical mathematical detailing of the Kemetic calendar. There are many other sites out there talking about Kemetic astronomy and astrology. They don't have the math behind it. They don't have the astrophysics to back it up. We do here, because this is serious. This is your soul. This is your spirit we're talking about. This is the life of our nation and of our people. So you can't get the math wrong. So stay tuned. Enjoy. Please visit us on our website, kingrasumabaf.com. And we teach more of this in our classes on astronomy, astrology, and the chakras, which you can join on the website. We'd love to see you all there. And remember, you are a star. Dwawend Hotepu.